Yeah, I ended up quitting my full-time job in October last year. I was still doing like guerrilla poets and the schools and all of that when I could, and then it got to a point where like I just can't do this anymore. And as soon as I quit, I started getting more opportunities and realized, oh wow, like you really can make a living doing art and doing poetry. Like you can, and that really inspired me. And now, like, I try to tell other people, it's like, don't believe the lie that you've told yourself, like, go for it. Yeah, because you can do it. There's
What's
money
up?
out
This is
there in
Creativity is
Charlotte.
an idea podcast, a source of creativity for creative people. And I am your host, Pyric. This is where creative entertaining guests talks about their ideas, their fun moments, their challenges and setbacks that led to their growth. And it's for creative entertaining people who wants ideas and a sense of belonging, or anybody out there who admires creative things and wants to be entertained and inspired to do whatever they want in life. So please stay tuned because it's going to be refreshing and entertaining. And one more thing, please, I would encourage you to subscribe, share, rate us. It will help bring more quality guests onto the show for you to get more value out of this show. It's going to be a banger. Stay tuned for the next episode and the current episode you're about to listen now. Stay tuned, please. What's going on, creative people and creative entertainers and all, I would say, creative things admirers? Today's guest is Shane, and before I tell you what she does, my name is Pyric and I am your host. Let me tell you, you all know that sometimes someone has to plant a seed and someone has to water it and someone has to take care of the seed. And I would say she's that kind of a person. She is a teacher. She teaches art and poetry.
Yep.
Yeah, so she's a teacher, Shane, and she's a teacher. She teaches art and poetry. So if you want to learn how to do art, you want to polish what you do, check her out. Check her out. She has had good testimonial from friends. Blues, who's a good guy.
Yeah, Blues is awesome.
Yeah.
He's such a sweetheart, too.
So check her out, and she performed poetry too. So Shane, the name is Shane.
Yeah.
How do you spell it?
It's Shane, and my dad named me after, there's this cowboy movie named Shane. Yeah, so that's how I got the name. It's actually a pretty like badass movie though, so
Okay.
it's like okay, I can rock with that. But yeah, a lot of times people think that it's like a male name, but I just this year I met like another female named Shane, and I was like so excited, like I had to like take a selfie with her because I was like it was so rare.
Wow.
But yeah,
Shane. All right, Shane. So tell me, you said when you were young you were a traveler,
yes,
and you go from state to state due to the work of your dad.
yeah.
And I believe traveling around has contributed to who you are.
Oh, totally.
So I want to ask you, Shane, who are you?
So it's so hard to define because I feel like I do so many things.
Oh, let it out.
Right. I feel like I'm a poet and an artist, but beyond that, more in depth, I feel like, or at least I hope, I'm inspiration. You know, like whether I'm teaching, whether I'm creating my own art, whether I'm doing my own poetry or releasing a book, whatever it is, I'm hoping that I'm inspiring and giving someone else a little pick me up or a little boost in what they could do or what they're passionate about. There's a poet that's from, oh gosh, like I don't know if it's like the 1800s or maybe even before that.
Also around.
It was a long time ago. Who said that it's not about just being a poet, it's about being a seer. Like how to use your senses and things like that. And I full-heartedly believe that because I believe that when you start thinking in poetry, when you start thinking in art, and when you start seeing the world in that way, then everything just unfurls for you. And it's like you become a child again in awe of the world around you. And that's that is what I hope to embody, and that's what I hope to give out every time I create something. So if I was to say like who I am, I would hope that I would be inspiration, or at least that's the goal. Yeah.
And I tell you what, people do love doers.
Yeah.
If you do something, good or bad, you get people to gravitate towards you. You'll get people who see value in what you do. They'll seek your services. They'll seek your company. They'll seek your enlightenment. So I solely believe, since you're a doer and you're looking to help and you're providing value day in, day out, living your life, you are inspiring someone.
Yeah, I think like, we all make a mark too, and it's up to us to make sure we're out there giving it. One of the slam team I was on, Respect the Mic, one of the members has this quote in one of his poems. It's Mr. Witts. He says, "If you're not teaching, you're thieving." And I love that quote, and I always remember that. It's like you got to be. It's if you have talent and you're making moves to achieve goals, it's almost like it's your responsibility to help others to achieve theirs and to give it to the world and not just keep it to yourself,
It's really true. You have to help others too.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Shane, I want to ask you, but before I even ask you about how you decided to become a poet and an artist, tell us, like, I see you wearing Respect the Mic, Slam, and you were on the Slam team. So
I was.
Tell us your experience about the whole journey.
That's a good question. So at first, I really did not like Slam at all. I really did not like the idea of poets competing against each other. I didn't think it was healthy. I thought, I thought that it was taking poetry away from the general public. A lot of poets like to say that Slam competition is a platform. I believed that you would do more good and more service if you was out in the streets, like doing poems, spitting poems to the common person who might not go to an open mic, who might not know what poetry is. That you would be making a bigger impact that way than being at a poetry slam and kind of preaching to the choir kind of thing. I was huge against Slam, and when we started Guerrilla Poets, which is my nonprofit in Charlotte, one of the reasons we started it is because we believed that poetry and art and music was given to us to save lives and to change people's lives. And we as a group didn't feel like, in Charlotte in particular, that was the focus. We didn't feel like that was really becoming the focus. It seemed like there was a lot of other stuff going on involving money and things like that. So I was huge against Slam for a long time, and then I got to a point in my life where I was getting frustrated in my own work, and I knew I needed to try something different and grow. And then I had to sit down and have like a long talk with myself and be like, if I am completely committed to poetry and what being a poet is, then I should probably embrace all aspects of it, And then my mother passed away, and I was desperate to get away. And my first big competition, like I was slamming at a few slams, and I was doing well. I was winning, and I ended up on a slam team. And when Southern Fried came around 2 years ago, my mother just passed, and I left for Southern Fried 2 days after my mother passed away. So it was perfect for me to get away and to go focus on something. But at the same time, I had a really negative experience out there because I was trying to run away from grief, and hearts don't work that way, But now last year, I went again with the same slam team and had an amazing experience. I wrote the entire time I was there. I loved it. I didn't even come home for a while. Like, it was great. I had such an amazing time. And so I think the importance whenever you get into anything that deals with competition, ego, money, anything like that, I think is important to remember the reason why you're there. Like, I go because it helps me with my writing, it helps me with editing, and I get inspired hearing all the other poets. And I get inspired by being in new cities and being able to experience the people of those cities. So for me, it's really like collecting poems. It's a growth thing. So my focus, like, of course everybody wants to win, but my main focus is how can I leave here and be a better person and a better poet than I was when I came. So
how can I leave here and be a better person and a better poet than I came?
Yeah.
That is a bomb right there.
Thank you.
Boom. Yeah. So creative people, you felt her experience, and at the end of it all, she says how she can leave better than she came.
Yeah.
That is excellent.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, Shane, you told us about your experience at the slam and how you felt about the slam and you embracing it since you're an artist. So tell us, how and when did you decide to do art and poetry?
So it was something that was always in me. I've been writing ever since I learned how to write. My first poem was like, I was like 6 years old, 5 or 6, and I wrote like this like little short ditty about like wolves or like a werewolf or something. It was so weird. But I've been writing and drawing ever since I was a kid, and I think it really has to do with that traveling. When you're young and you're growing up on the road and you're changing schools constantly, I had friends, but they weren't permanent, and I hung out with mostly adults. So it was hard for me to express all these beautiful, cool things I was seeing traveling. Like, we got to go to Niagara Falls, we got to go to the Grand Canyon, we got to go all over. And I would go to school and we would be learning about a place I had went, and I would raise my hand and say like, oh, I just was there and it was so awesome. And the other kids would get angry at me because they had never left their county. They had never left their city. So I was like, oh, she thinks she's something because she's
places.
Right. So it got to the point where like I couldn't express myself, and I think that's the reason why I turned to writing, and that's the reason why I turned to art, so I could express myself, because I was being filled with so much. There is nothing like traveling. I highly recommend it for anyone. Like, as soon as you get a moment where like you think, even if it's just once a year, go somewhere, experience something, because every place is so different, and it really, there's like a knowledge and a wisdom that you gain from that you can't get anywhere else, But it was difficult. I remember there were several places where it was rough. I also lived on a reservation for a while because I'm Indian and French, and I stayed on the Cheyenne reservation in Wyoming. And that was an eye-opener for me, too. It was important for my dad to teach me about where I come from and what he had learned and what was passed down. And so school was even harder for me expressing myself, because everyone would stand up for the anthem and I'd be like, or they'd be like teaching history and I'd be like, that is not what happened, and then now the class is angry at me and now the teacher's angry at me, and it's like, so, but I still ended up making good grades. But yeah, I really needed an outlet. I needed a way to express some of the amazing things I was experiencing, and also some of the heartache of what I was experiencing as well. So, and then especially when I got into high school was, it was hell. It was awful. My father died, grandparents died, and I was a wreck. I was not mentally stable at all. And I say all the time that like poetry and art save lives, and it did save mine, but I still ended up trying to commit suicide.
Oh.
Even while doing, and that's the reason why I wanted to become a teacher, because I wanted to be the person I didn't have. Like, I had some great teachers, don't get me wrong, that also helped me along in my journey as an artist and a poet. Miss Harden, Miss Marlowe, two amazing teachers that I'm so thankful for that I had. But I still ended up like, I was extremely unstable. I was violent to myself and to other people. In high school, I hung myself. My best friend had found me and cut me down. And like, I knew in high school that I wanted to work with teens. Because it can be life or death every single day. And there was no way with my history and knowing what I know about that pivotal time in your life, there was no way that I could spend the rest of my life and not try to help other teens that were going through that. So, that's really why I became a teacher, and that's why I started writing and why I started doing art as well. I mean, because it's a huge power. Artists and poets aren't just painting things to make your house feel good. We're also historians. We're medics. We're, there's so much power in poetry and in art and in music. And, if you took all that, stripped all that away, that's a really dark world.
I just left. Hold on. Empty space. Every artist plays a role in every department, every business, every building you see.
Yeah.
Everything.
And people also don't understand that like creativity is also a part of problem solving. So, I mean, even in business, if you take creativity away, it's just empty space. So, I think that the arts in general are important. I'm so blessed that I get to do it for a living, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is excellence. That was Shane, creative people. That was Shane. So, interesting. I'm even blank now. But I think let me ask you, so who is your influencer?
Oh, that's a good question. So I really like a lot of poets. I like Buddy Wakefield. I like Arthur Rimbaud, which is the guy who said that that you have to be more than a poet, you have to be a seer. I base a lot of philosophy off of him. But I also, when I was in high school, like I had been writing poetry and I'd been writing short stories and I'd been doing art. But when I hit high school, that's when I started. I've had really bad insomnia all my life. And in high school, I would be up watching TV or something, and on HBO, Def Poetry Jam started coming on. And I was just blown away. And I was just like, I want to be on there one day, And I watched that every single episode. And I was also huge into Rage Against the Machine and a lot of like rock bands and things like that. But I always mention Rage Against the Machine because that was one of the influences on me that helped me become a political poet. And the way that they write and the way that they use wordplay. I'll never forget listening to the Battle of Los Angeles and like the line where he goes, "The five-sided fist of gone." And I was just like, what? And like I wanted to be creative and clever with my writing in that way. So that really influenced me. My dad was a huge influence. He would take me out in the woods or we would be somewhere, anywhere, and he'd be like, look right there, look at that. And then he'd walk off and leave me like standing there and being like, what is he talking about? But he taught me how to like see how to pay attention, that there's like poetry and art all around you all the time. Everything is a prompt, everything. And he taught me that, and he would encourage me to keep writing. He would want to hear my poems. There's a poem called Invictus. He considered that our poem. He wrote it on the back of his toolbox. Like, he was a huge influence for me to write and to draw as well. He encouraged me to draw. My mom really encouraged me with art a lot. I don't think she totally understood the poetry, but she got the art, and she pushed me in that respect as well. I'm influenced by a lot of beat poets too, from like the 60s, because they were so rebellious, and just their voices were so loud and prominent about what was going on in the world around them. So in art, I think my influences, Monet, modern artists. I've been following this lady called Robin Sealark, and she is a really big inspiration. She's on YouTube, and she's an artist. And then just I'm influenced by my peers as well, like Jay Ward, Bree Stallings, blues, like there's so many, all my friends, the Respect the Mic Slam team, the Guerrilla Poets, every single one of them are so incredibly talented, and even just having a conversation with them will spark something, So Charlotte has some amazing people who just, even being in their energy or just talking to them, it makes you feel successful, or like you can get to the next step or something. So yeah. So yeah.
Wow, that is excellent. So she gets inspired or influenced by parents, some known reputable poets, peers. I think that's it.
Yep.
That's excellent. So Shane, since you are a poet and you're a teacher of poets and art, so I want to ask you this. Sometimes when you wake up, you may feel you don't want to do anything. Some days you wake up, you're jammed up, you're jacked up, you want to do something.
Right.
You feel inspired, you got some ideas last night and you couldn't sleep, and now you are up. So you are about to grind, and then life hits you. Like, oh snap, what do I do? But you keep moving. So I want to ask you, day in, day out, right? What do you do differently? And what do you do? Like, what are your steps, or what do you do differently to see progress in what you're doing?
Okay. That's an excellent question. And that's extremely important, because it will hit you. There are going to be days where like you don't feel like painting, that you don't feel like writing. There's going to be days where, there's times where I'm like, as much as my heart is in teaching, there are some days where I'm like emotionally overwhelmed, and like I feel like going into the classroom is going to hurt me, but I mean, emotionally, because I know my students' stories, and I know what I have to be for them when I go in. But I always try to remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then I also switch up my language. This is something I've learned from PFO, which is an organization called Playing for Others. I started working with them. And the lady who runs that, Jennifer Brand, is amazing. She is amazing. And she also has been showing us some self-development tools. And one of them is changing your language from should to could. And I read somewhere else too about how instead of saying I have to, say I get to. And just those little changes in what you say completely will change your mentality and change the way you feel. So when I wake up in the morning, for the longest time, I'd be like, I should go work on this painting or this book. And I stop saying that, and instead I say, I could go work on my painting or this book. And then all of a sudden it's an inspiration, and you don't feel guilty about the action. You know, there's not that pressure of, if I don't do this, then I'm falling behind. Mm-hmm. Instead, you are inspiring yourself to go do it. And it's the same for like, if I'm not feeling like I want to be around people today, mm-hmm. and I know I have to go into a classroom and there's like 20 students, I don't say I have to go teach today. I say I get to go teach today. And it completely changes.
You get to, it's sort of an opportunity, a chance for you to be alive and get through life the way you want. So
yes.
You get to.
Yeah. And like another thing that's so important too is I'm really bad about making time for myself. Mm-hmm. Until I found that making time for myself doesn't mean sitting on a couch and watching TV, you know? So like now I pick up my sketchbook, or I do something that's going to feed me, you know? And that's also giving me progress, because now I've got more art to show and sell, but I'm also doing something that is calming me, relaxing me, and feeding my spirit. So I'm not a very girly girl, so my self-care might not look like going to the spa. My self-care might look like sitting down to just doodle, or sitting down to experiment with new types of paint, mm-hmm. or, you know, listening to a podcast, mm-hmm. or reading a self-help book, even though I used to hate them. I used to think that they were so ridiculous, but now it's like they really have some gems of knowledge in there, you know, doing something that's going to re-inspire me, mm-hmm. and keep me going. So self-care doesn't always have to look like, you know, going to the spa or something like that. It could be something that you are learning to continue on your journey. Mm-hmm. I try to switch it up too by doing really unique things, like, and I'll play this game sometimes when I'm out somewhere of like, where's the poem in the room, you know, and I'll people watch, or I'll think of an idea for an art project and then flip the perspective on it, you know. Mm-hmm. So like just trying things in different ways, and then trying new things as well. I did a summer program with Community School of the Arts, and Jason Watson, I was working alongside him, and he is so inspiring to be around. Mm-hmm. And he would get an idea to try to play with like a fabric or a type of paper or something, and use it in an art piece, and he'd be like, "We fear no medium," you know. And it's stuff like that, of like not being afraid to try new things, and just for the fun of it, you know. That keeps you going as well, and you're growing and you're learning something new. So not only is it fun, but you're expanding your talents too. So
wow, day in, day out, a lot of stuff goes on in your mind, but you're able to you change your language. It's like, instead of saying I have to, you say I get to.
Yeah.
Or instead of saying you should, you said I could.
Yes.
Which sort of changes your whole perception about what you're about to do.
And and it works. It's something so simple, but it works. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm starting a little bit program here. This is not a shameless plug or anything. This is digression. And I was, as you see a mirror here, right? And the mirror, I intentionally leave it to let it have some spots, because nothing is perfect.
Oh, right. I got you.
I was tying my shoes up, and I saw myself in the mirror. I'm like, who the hell are you planning to do this thing? And I said, I'm a fucking psycho. I'll do it. And the moment I said that, it sort of changed my perception about having limits.
Right.
I'm not saying I don't have limits. I have limits which I need to know how to balance them. Right. But, and also just to plug this, if you don't have limits, it doesn't mean you have to spread yourself too thin too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm learning that.
It just dawned on me, it changed my perception that I don't have limits. And if I want to do it, I can do it. It's just going to take learning, planning,
Right.
talking to the right people, working with the right people, learning from my mistakes. So if you know the word cycle, if you know the meaning of the cycle, it sort of shifts your whole paradigm
Right.
about how you want to go about this, and about how you feel you could or you can do something.
Right.
So if you say you're a cycle, right?
Yeah.
What do cycles do? Tell me. Someone
So-
who's a cycle.
So like they don't follow any rules or anything, right? Like if you're psycho, normally you're unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do whatever you feel like you want to do in the moment, or whatever your intensity is calling you to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
and
that's
if
really
you say you're a cycle at your artwork or you're a cycle at your poetry, you devour it when you're working on it.
Right, you
work
are completely-
intensively
right.
to get it done.
Right.
And the moment I said that word, it had a whole different shift on my perception about how I go about it. And when you say it, it becomes a trigger. I've made it a trigger in my mind.
Yeah.
Now, whenever even I'm feeling very down and sleepy and I trigger that word,
Right.
I light up.
Right.
To
That's
go
awesome.
crazy about whatever I'm working on.
That
So-
is cool.
What you said, words are really, really important, and they do help.
Yeah, they really do.
Really help.
That's really cool. I might try that for myself when I'm like
Yeah, just look at him. I'm a fucking psycho.
fucking psycho.
Yeah. So, tell me, Shane. Shane. I like the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do know a lady who's called Shane.
Do you really?
Yeah, Shane.
Aw.
I do.
We're
I do.
spreading. We're getting out
Oh,
there.
my bad. He's a guy.
Oh,
My bad. He's a guy.
That's okay.
Shane.
That's okay.
It's Shaniqua is what I know, and Shane is a guy. Shay. I call her Shay, not Shane. Shay. And Shane is a guy. But there are Shane ladies around.
We're getting out there.
So let me ask you, we'll be talking after this question, we are going to talk about your source of creativity and also any 3 helpful tips you feel anybody out there, even who is a pro or who is a beginner, should or could
Right.
know
There you
to
go.
help them so that they can get to do whatever they want to do.
Cool.
So tell me, before I ask all those things, tell me, and before I ask you, let me tell you this, and let me paraphrase this Newton's law for you. There's this Newton's law. It says in order for you to go up, you have to let certain things down.
Got you. Yeah.
And I'm going to cross my leg to listen to your answer because I believe you have a lot to say with this.
Right.
So, day in, day out. No, let me stop even that. In order for you to go up, you have to let certain things down. So,
Right.
what did you have to do? Or what did you have to do to let things go? Or what things did you have to let go before you saw gradual progress?
First and foremost, especially being female, for any female artist, no matter what your medium is, you have got to let go of toxic relationships. And not all my relationships that I've been in have been toxic, but there's something about like when you, and this goes for males too, but more so it happens to females. If you're in a relationship and the other person becomes resentful because you're making progress,
Oh,
yeah, or you're out late at night because there's a poetry spot that you're spitting at, or you're spending a lot of time in the studio, things like that. Like if they can harbor resentment, and it's not even intentional, it could be something subconscious, but it will hold you back and it will affect you. And there are relationships that you can have. Like I'm in an amazing relationship right now, and he's a creative person too, and so he understands that he needs his space to create, and so do I. And he understands, like, he gets booked at a place to go play. He's a musician. He knows that I'll get booked for a feature to go do poetry or to go live paint somewhere. And he understands that, so having a healthy relationship with your partner, that understands your process and understands what you have to do in order to be successful, is key. And letting go of the people who don't, because at the end of the day, you have to understand what's your responsibility and what's not, of other people, and who supports you and who doesn't. So letting go of toxic relationships is key. And then the other thing is the things that you tell yourself from previous hurt. So I had a huge problem with keeping myself small, thinking that no one's going to respect me, which is crazy because I teach so many, teenagers who aren't afraid to tell you what they think, and most of them love me to death, and it's like, to the idea that someone's not going to respect me is weird, but I had a fear of that. And maybe it's because of my peers or someone older. I don't know. But I had a huge problem with keeping myself small and playing it safe. And, I'm only going to shine enough to make a little bit of progress, and then I'm going to go away again, and then I'll shine a little bit. And then, and being I had to get out of my own way, and I had to be like, you deserve to accomplish your own goals, and you deserve to, I had to let all the negative self-talk go. I had to, and you have to believe in your own worth, and you have to tell that in that little inner voice that's saying no one's going to take you serious, no one's going to respect you, everybody's laughing at you, things like that. You have to let that go and be like, okay, I hear you, but shut up and move forward. And everyone has it. Everyone has some sort of voice that's beating themselves up, and it's funny once you start really loving yourself in that way, when you meet people who will attack you because they need it for their own ego, it won't even affect you anymore. You could actually look at them and go, I know that you need that for your pain. That's all right. And can go about your business and keep making moves and keep, doing what you need to do. If you're operating at a level where you're not loving yourself in that way, then when someone comes up and does that to you, it could set you back years, so you have to get out of your own way, and you have to tell that inner voice to shut up, and you have to let it go. And you also have to let go of fear, because when I quit my full-time job to do this, I was terrified. I couldn't eat. I was shaking. I was like, I was going to throw up. I was like, it's so funny. The night I quit, I went to a carnival. I went to a fair, and I sat in the car for 30 minutes because my stomach was so upset. I felt like I hadn't even gone on a ride and felt like I was going to throw up. And my boyfriend was like, are you sure you want to go in here? And I was like, yes. I was like, make a scary decision. We're going to go on a scary ride, And when I was inside the fair, I was walking around and I was like, well, maybe I could get a job here and just be a carny. And these are going to be my people now, I was terrified. I didn't know what was going to happen to me, but it's so crazy. As soon as I quit, that's when all these opportunities started popping up. And I was like, oh man, I can do this, So letting go of that fear, when you get to a point where you know that this is no longer for you, that this is not right anymore, that it physically hurts you to continue and not make a change. You got to let go of that fear, and you got to just jump. You just got to go into it and find your way through it, We have this fear that, if we quit our job or if we go for something that, it's the end of the world if it doesn't work out. But it's like, you're not going to die. McDonald's will always hire. You could flip some burgers for a while to get back on your feet. You're not going to die, just do it, just leap, just go. So letting go of fear is really important. I think those are probably the three major things.
Yeah. So to summarize what Shane said, when it comes to the things she had to let go before she saw progress. One was letting go of toxic relationships because it affects you. Yeah, it's like you're surrounded by toxics, and
Yeah.
what you become what you surround yourself with, what you see day in day out, what you read, what sits beside you,
Yeah.
what you hear. So let go of toxic relationship because it's going to drain you down, and it's going to make you feel not capable of doing what you want to do. And the second was finding
The second one was, I don't even remember what I said. I talked for so long.
let me talk about the third one. The second one will come. The third one was take the leap of faith to do what you want to do. Don't be scared to do what you want to do.
Right,
And,
let go of fear. The second one was
thinking
let go of negative self-talk.
self-talk. Yeah. I was just testing you.
That's all right. I got it. I was worried there for a minute.
My brain left me. It just came back. So the first one, leave toxic relationships because it's going to drain you. Yeah, not kidding. And the second one was beware of self-talk. What you say to yourself can really impact how you go about anything in life because you spend the most time with yourself.
Right, yeah.
And if you hear something from somewhere and you decide to adopt it, be it negative or positive, guess who ends up with it? You.
Yeah.
So be careful what you say to yourself, be careful what you hear and what you adopt into your mindset. And the third one was take a leap of faith.
Yes.
Don't be scared. Strategically, not saying. She was able to do it because she had a belief that this was what she was going to do. And when she left that place, her job, she started seeing opportunities because she was into something. You were into art and poetry and you started teaching.
Yeah.
And that is how you were able to see opportunities, not that you just quit and like, okay, where's the wind gonna blow me? You had a plan.
Like I didn't have a completely mapped out plan, but I knew what I wanted to do. Like I knew kind of what my direction was, and then I for at least 3 weeks after I quit, seriously, I soaked up all the knowledge I could. I took free business summits. I became a psycho. I soaked up so much information. I was reading nonstop about strategies on how to plan for yourself when you're self-employed. I read books about the adolescent mind, like how I could become a better teacher. I read self-help books about how to be successful. I took an online free business summit. And crammed that in for 7 days straight and just learned about marketing and things that would help me to sell online and stuff like that. I mean, I was soaking up all the knowledge that I could. So anyone who takes that leap, you definitely be learning because there's a lot to it. When you work for yourself, or you're trying to work for other organizations and do your own art and do your own thing, your revenues, your money is going to come from many different streams. And you have to be okay with that. And you have to be able to know what leads those streams to you so you can make sure that it don't dry up, It
doesn't get clogged up.
Yeah, that too. So, but I was terrified. But I'm so glad I did. Yeah.
And at this moment, I wanna say thanks to any self-employed person, anybody who is not self-employed. I want to say thank you to. And the reason I'm saying this is that I remember when I did have a branding and marketing agency, I was driving around. I had a client, just that I was trying to get to the next level because I knew agencies that were charging $2,000 for branding strategy, that were charging $35,000, And what they were doing, I know I was able to do it because I've done it on a lower level for people.
Right.
And it depends on what that client wanted. So looking around, driving around, like I'll be looking at businesses. I'm like, wow, these people have been able to survive. And I was clapping for them in my mind.
Right, right.
You know, they may have their own struggles in the business, but they are still there providing services.
Oh, definitely.
They are still there employing people. They are still there being able to pay the lights.
Oh, definitely.
You know, so it was a big ups to anybody who is self-employed, who is grinding, who is helping other people to also get jobs so that they can feed their family. Big ups to everybody out there. You know, big ups. You all stay blessed and keep grinding. Anyway, that was something sad. So, you know what? What do you have? You said you're sitting on 13. Sorry to bring this up.
Yeah.
You said you're sitting on 13 books.
I am sitting on 13 books. I'm releasing my next poetry book called Divine Disturbances in November, and it's going to also be released with an art show and an interactive kind of gallery, because I want to start adding multiple layers into the things that I'm doing. So combining the art and the poetry, and also adding an element to what I do so that it becomes an experience. And it's not just I show up, I read from my new book, and I sign some copies and go home. You know, I want it to be more interactive than that. So I'm coming up with new ways for that. But yeah, 13 books. I think you had mentioned something about if I had any advice for anybody. Don't do what I did.
Okay.
Don't.
Since you're talking about, let's go into that.
Yeah.
Let's go into that. Like, if you were to talk about, I would say 3 main things which you think or feel someone out there could know,
Yeah.
or like it's not a must, but it's going to help them.
Right.
You know.
Definitely the don't do what I did and wait that long, because if I released a book a year, that's 13 years. That's 13 years it would take for me to catch up. And I got so far behind with releasing these books that because I was helping so many other people achieve their goals and not focusing on mine. So one of the 3 major things is get your ass organized. If you write poetry, if you do art, make sure you have it organized. Have that stuff in folders, have backups, have a plan with what you're actually going to do with it, you know. I have one book that has already been published through Main Street Rag called Fallen Heroes of the Awful Waffle, and it's all about poems. It's people that I've met in waffle houses all over like the southern United States. And it's crazy because you don't realize you might focus on one project and not realize that there's all these other things that are getting backed up, you know? And so if you're not organized, if you don't have like a goal map, if you don't sit down and map out, okay, this is what I want to achieve, here's the next step to achieve this thing, and so on and so on, you can get backlogged like that to where now it's like you almost have to cut corners in order to catch up, you know, and that sucks. Like, I would love to try to submit every single one to be professionally published like my first one was, but I know the reality is that if I want to catch up so I can move forward, like, some of them are going to have to be self-published, you know, but that doesn't mean that I should half-ass the book. Like, I can still pay a professional editor, which I use Leslie Ruprat. She's here in Charlotte. She's amazing. You know, I could still make it professional, but you just have that rush behind you. So definitely be organized, because it can get away from you, especially if you're into activism, you know, like me running Guerrilla Poets like a big part of my life is activism, is being an activist, is being in the community and helping others. And then, you know, one day when I finally was like, I'm going to go through all my poetry, and then I realized how much I was sitting on. I mean, it made me so sad, like, to think, you know, like, I didn't care enough about myself to think that this was important until it had gotten this far, you know? Yeah, so that's one, is get your ass organized, because it was a pain in the ass to go through all those poems too. It was a lot, like, because none of them were organized. Yeah, so be organized.
Be organized, one, and now two.
Two is find that one thing that makes you feel the best. So think back to like the happiest moments in your life, like places where you felt most connected to the world around you, and then figure out how you can incorporate that into your goals.
Sleeping. Wow.
Right. You could do a workshop on sleeping. You could totally do that. Like one of mine was when I was traveling, it was being in awe of the world. So as long as I continue to try to cultivate that feeling every day, and then make sure that what I'm giving into the world has that feeling as its aim, I'm going to feel way more successful, and you will too, way more successful in what it is you do, and you're going to feel way more fulfilled. So making sure the emotion that you want to feel for yourself and where that passion comes from is being included into your goals. So, like, for an example, if that's a little complicated, for example, I could do a workshop on how to write a political poem, and it would be good, but I could do a workshop on how to match your body to nature, like describe yourself as a tree, describe yourself as a canyon, and I'm going to walk away feeling way more fulfilled, because you've redefined yourself, and it's one of those emotions that are my primary emotions, which is freedom and awe. You know, like, you've set yourself free by redefining yourself. Or you're going to go outside, you're going to leave that workshop, and you're going to look at a tree different. You're going to look at a picture of a canyon different. You know what I mean? So it's like you're seeing it like it's the first time you've ever seen it again, you know? So making sure your primary emotion, whatever that is, whether it be love, whether it be safety, whether it be freedom, whether it be whatever it is, making sure that that's being incorporated into your goals. And that keeps you going too. Yeah. And then
that was two. So now the third one.
3, if you're an artist of any kind, whether it be painting, music, or poetry, or theater, whatever it is, comedy, don't let other people get to you. There are cities that are hella supportive of their artist, and then there are cities where everyone's kind of out for self. And I feel like Charlotte has flip-flopped between those two extremes, and I think we're in a good spot now to where we can support each other and like really become something great, you know, again, or, you know, maybe even better than it was before, because Charlotte was really well known for, like, North Carolina in general was like the poetry state. You know, it was like an artist's place. Don't listen to other people. Like, I mean, learn from people if they're offering advice. But if someone comes up and especially if you're in a setting where I've seen artists say something snarky to another artist, let that shit go. You know, don't absorb that into you. Especially if you're just starting out, because you're not going to be at that level 5 years from now. You're not going to be at that level next year, you know? So they don't know your path. They don't know your outcome. Stop looking for other people for permission. The only permission you need is yours, you know? And I hate it because I've seen young artists stop because of something someone else has said or because of something they chose to accept. And, yeah, you stop waiting for permission from other people and just do it. Because I guarantee you, everyone who is successful, they're not waiting for permission.
Hell no, they'll wait forever if they should. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel you on that. So, to summarize what she said, one
was get organized. Get your shit together.
I'm testing you. Yeah, you're organized.
Get
so
organized.
One, get organized. Two
was one was get organized.
do some things that fulfills
primary emotion.
Your primary emotions, because that will keep you going in life.
And 3, don't take no shit from no one. You don't need nobody's permission.
No damn shit permission from no one. Don't wait for someone to give you permission. You know, permission will be granted after you're done.
Yeah,
so sometimes
exactly.
It's better to do what you want to do and go on with it. When they find out, oh, why didn't you ask permission to do this? But I'm done with it. If you don't like the results, guess what? I'll do something different next time. So it's better to be forgiven than to gain permission. I don't know if I'm getting that phrase well. There's a phrase like that. Don't need to ask. In entrepreneurship, sometimes you don't have to ask permission. Just do it.
Right. Just do it. What happens. So, stop waiting for someone to tell you you're worthy of it.
Yeah.
You are worthy of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched this movie way back in Africa, Ghana, and the man had, I would say, as a guy who was sort of in the house helping him out in business and stuff. Actually, he was the caretaker of the house, you know, and the man was a wealthy man. He was like, where is the money I gave you? Where is the money? I've been giving you money to put there for something. So where is it? To save it for me. So where is it? He asked him, and he was like, oh, I don't have it with me. He was like, why? Then he started talking. He didn't wait for the caretaker to finish talking.
Right.
And he was like, oh, this is what I've done. I have gained this interest on it because I invested it in this and that.
Right.
You know, and it still goes back to one proverb in the Bible where people were given talents.
Yeah, and
one was waiting. Oh, they said, master, you're a mean master. So 3 people. One said, you're a mean master, and so I didn't want to touch your stuff. I just wanted to keep it. And one of them said something, but the third one was like, oh, I invested it into this and that and that and that. So I see more. I gain more profit.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Don't ask for permission. If the guy has waited and had excuses, the third person wouldn't have invested the talent he was given.
Yes,
you know.
Definitely.
So those are good 3 points you shared with us. So at this point we are about to wrap up, but we have like few things to ask before we go.
Okay.
I want you to tell us, Shane, your views about the industry. When you finish telling us those things, you tell us about how your source of creativity, and then we gossip. Then we wrap up.
Cool.
So the gossip is going to be anything you want to say, you want to compliment, you want to vent, you want to whine, you want to criticize, you want to say wow to anything. Okay. So tell us, what are your views about your industry?
I feel like a lot of people think that the art world, whether it be poetry or art or even music, I feel like there's this huge veil. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like they can't figure out how to get in to where they want to go. And a lot of times, like, all you literally have to do is ask. Like, I'll send some emails out to a few artists, and I might get one response back, like, giving me advice, but that's one at least, you know? It's like sometimes all you have to do is ask if you don't know how to get in somewhere. And they do kind of keep it really vague. And I think it's because a lot of different places in Charlotte run differently. Like, I work for Bahailu, playing for others. And then I also am teaching at Henderson. So those are the three places I'm mainly teaching. And then I also do workshops with guerrilla poets all over, everywhere. And every single one of those organizations run differently. Guerrilla Poets runs differently than Bahailu. Bahailu runs differently than PFO. PFO runs differently than Henderson. You know, they all have their own leadership and they all have their own inner workings. So getting in to, like, if you want to go teach art at Bahailu, it'd be a different process than if you want to go teach at Henderson or something like that. And some of the funding is coming from different places. Some are grants. Some are, you know, it's like it becomes complicated. It becomes overwhelming. So, like, the industry in itself, and it's the same with galleries. Like, there are some galleries where they want people out of state. They want international artists. They're not looking for people
Local.
right here in Charlotte. And if you don't know that and you're wasting your time, like, applying to the place and not getting in and getting frustrated, and then you start thinking that you suck as an artist
Or
and
the
stuff
local
like
place, they don't like this, they are so biased or whatever. Why?
right. Or, like, you know, you play this type of music, this venue doesn't like that type of you know, it's like you have to kind of do your research. And it becomes overwhelming, but, like, the industry I feel is very much like veil until someone is like, hey, come here and check it out. You know, it's like eventually you meet someone that pulls the veil away and it's like, this is how it works. But you won't know that unless you ask. So, yeah, I encourage everybody to always ask questions about, like, if, you know, and don't be afraid if they don't respond to you, just move on to the next person. But the industry is very much, I keep wanting to say cloak and dagger, but that's malicious. It's not malicious. It's just you have to ask in order to learn how it works, how to get into certain galleries, how to get into certain, how to be a feature at a poetry spot. There are tons of poets in this city that would help other people find that out, but it's not something you can Google. You know what I mean? So the industry is very,
to put that information out.
Yeah, the industry is very much veil with all the workings behind it, and someone has to actually, you know, be like, hey, come here, I'll show you. You know, so that would be how I would say the industry is.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how the industry is. So tell us, Shane, what is your source of... But before you tell us that, let me say this to the audience. If you're still listening, this is Creativity is an Idea podcast, a source of creativity for creative entertaining people and anybody who wants to be entertained and inspired to do whatever they want in life. And today's guest is Shane. She is a teacher and she teaches poets and art. So if you are listening, you're in that industry, great. If you are not, you can still listen because she was dropping some good stuff, you know, which applies to day in, day out life, which most people take for granted. So stay tuned, and she is about to tell us about her source of creativity. Yeah. So Shane, tell us, what is your source of creativity?
For me, it's the exposure of humanity. That's like my artist statement, and that's my poet statement, and how that connects us. So my source of creativity comes from seeing... It comes from connecting. So if I'm connecting with nature, it's still an exposure of my humanity. If I'm connecting with someone in a grocery store, or someone I make eye contact with somebody and we have this special little moment, that's a source of inspiration. That's a source of creativity. It's connection to me. Connection is the source, because I could go outside and look at the sky and be separate from it and think, oh, that's a pretty sky. But if I go outside and all of a sudden my chest becomes the sky, and I submerge and I rise up to meet the sky in the way that I give it attention, and the way that I attempt to connect and find myself in the sky, or like, how does this relate to me, or how is this a part of me, then it becomes so much deeper on that level. And that's where the poetry and the art, and like that's where all the arts is in the connection between the world around us and ourselves. So a lot of the poems that I write and the things that I paint, there's always a connection there.
Wow. So the arts and the creative things we see are all in connection with the world around us, and
each other.
Yeah. That is excellent.
Yeah.
We are about to gossip, Shane. So if you want to take a sip of water, just to...
Oh, Lord, who do I want to talk about? No, I'm just playing.
We are about to... You can talk about any creative... Not even any creative. You can talk about any public figure, any public issue, global things you want to compliment, you want to criticize, you want to vent at, you want to whine at, you want to say, wow, that is good. You want to... Oh, to hell with that. I'm not even going to talk about that.
Right.
Any personal thing, just let it flow.
So we had mentioned a lot about the teaching. So I know here lately there's been a lot of like teachers quitting and things like that, like in public schools, because the schools are overcrowded, the teachers aren't being paid enough, and it sucks. Public school is a terrifying place right now. I will tell you that what's being done in our school systems is terrifying for this country and for these youth and these teens, and it breaks my heart. But one thing aside from that, like, we don't give teachers enough credit, but at the same time, I've also been in school systems where, and it would be a public school or it'd be an alternative school, not naming any names, because I'm very thankful to work with the people I work with and to be in the programs I'm in. But I've seen a problem arise in a classroom and it's been the teacher's fault. And like, I can easily say that maybe 80 to 90% of issues that arise in the classroom are because of the teacher. And I've seen students have panic attacks and the teacher tell them that to get over it, and won't even give them 5 minutes to go to the bathroom so they can catch their breath and calm down. And it's ridiculous to me. And it's like, I have sympathy and empathy for a lot of these teachers that feel like they can't do it anymore. But there's also like a part of me that's like, good, you need to be out of the classroom because your heart's not in the right place. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, I think this myth about teachers needs to go. Like, going in that you're not going to make a lot of money. Let's just put that out there. Secondly, if you have a family to support, then you should probably not be a teacher. Like, because I feel like your attention has to go to those 20 students, those how many ever students. Like, people ask me all the time, they're like, when you going to have a baby? And I'm like, I've got like 60 of them all spread out, like, that I already have to worry about, you know? And that doesn't mean that eventually I won't have a kid, but I just feel like if you already have a family and you know you're not going to get paid a lot as a teacher, and you know how much time, like, because it don't just stop in the classroom. You're still planning lessons and grading things afterwards. You know how much time is going into it, but then you're going to be bitter and angry because you're not spending time with your family and you don't have enough money to support your family. Then don't be a teacher. Teach your kids, you know, and get fulfillment that way, or do something in your community. Do an after school program. You don't have to be like in a public school, you know, constantly if you're under those constraints. I feel like I feel like in order to be a teacher in a public school now, it takes a very specific person in a very specific time of their life, whether that might be early 20s to mid 30s, like, and it sucks because it's gotten that much pressure onto teachers. But at the same time, it's like we also have to look at the issue and figure out what to do, because the government's not going to. You know what I mean? Like, we kind of have to stop waiting for permission, and figure out, well, what can we do now, and who can we put in place now in these school systems that would be better for these kids. If I was hiring teachers and a woman came in and she said that she had a family, and I know this is going to sound crazy, I would hesitate to hire her, because I know it's not going to be enough to support her. She's going to get burnt out faster. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't, but it's something that, you have to consider.
You let her review the situation.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really sad that it's gotten to that point. But I'm so thankful that after school programs exist, like Bahailu and Playing for Others, and even our group, Guerrilla Poets, what we do, because they're getting damaged at public school, and then they come to us, and then we're trying to correct the damage that's being done there. And it's crazy. I've seen videos of some of my students when they come from public school. They're showing me videos of, like, students running across desks taking swings at each other, and that's math class every day.
They're calculating the math. Okay, when I do this, I get 3 points.
Right. And it's like, you cannot learn in that, but no one can. And the teacher is like, you're looking at the video and you're like, where the hell is the teacher? And the teacher is just exhausted behind the desk, just like not knowing what to do anymore. And it's chaos. It's yeah, it's really scary. So I try to, every chance I get, when I hear people say, oh, I'd like to get involved with youth or teens, I tell them, good, do it, because they need you desperately. You don't have to become a public school teacher, but you can at least join an after school program and help them out, because it's needed. It's
needed. I remember when I was a teacher, I used to teach IT back in Ghana, and it was fulfilling sometimes, and it was like, oh boy, what is this? Sometimes you're like, okay, you don't even know what to say next after you're trying to teach someone something, and some people get it and some don't, and you're trying to figure ways to go about it to make them understand. Then you realize everybody is different, and some people need extra time. Some people, they're like, school is not for me.
Right.
No.
There's and that sucks too about the overcrowding too, because like students do learn differently, and when you are overcrowded in the classroom, then there ends up students who get left out because there's not enough time. I really like the idea of like a teacher and a teacher's assistant in a space. I really like that idea, because then you have an extra support there to help, the whole of the classroom, when it becomes that big of a group, especially when you have students who have behavioral problems or like ADHD and things like that. They need that one-on-one desperately, Yeah,
it helps them catch up. And even with the one-on-one, they are still fidgeting and daydream. Yeah, it's a lot that goes into kids to make them who they are. Wow, that's excellent. So, creative people, that was Shane. And now she's going to tell us how we can find her.
Yes, so I have a website. It's www.shanemainer.com, and that's spelled ShaneMainier. And my email is on there. I have some blogs on there. You can see my art. You can order my poetry book, and I have an album as well called Bootstraps. You can order it on there. You can keep up with me. You can join my newsletter. I give out a lot of advice and tips on my newsletter as well. I do I will be doing a lot of art videos, and yeah, I have my newsletter is called Stay Inspired. So the idea of the newsletter is just to keep encouraging other artists and things like that. So a lot of times I'll do tips and challenges too for the month for people. I'll do self-care tips for artists and poets because our lives are different than other people. But yeah, you can find me on there, and then you can find me on Facebook as well. All my stuff should be linked through my website though. So.
Yeah. So creative people, creative admirers and entertainers, anybody out there who is listening, if you didn't hear what she said, I want you to rewind, go back. And if you still don't hear it and you're not able to grab everything she said, don't worry. Everything is going to be in the description. If you're on iTunes, it's going to be in the description notes. If you're on Spotify, it's going to be in the description notes. If you're on Stitcher, it's going to be on the description note. And if you're watching on YouTube too, it's going to be in the description notes. You can click those links, or you can type it in. You can look her up and then be in tune with what she said. So, Shane, it was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This is really cool. It's important what you're doing. So
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So, creative people, and as always, please don't fuck up.
Yeah.
But when you do fuck up, make sure you fuck up real good to help others. I still don't know what that means, but everybody says it's cool when I'm saying it. Anyway, so it was a pleasure. You all stay tuned for the next episode, and please, I would encourage you to subscribe, listen, share, rate us, good as review. Give us some good review, some bad review or whatever review. Give us some good review so that we can get quality guests like Shane on the show for you to get more value out of this. Creativity is an Idea podcast. Stay blessed. Boy,
that was cool.
Wow,
Thank you.
You made it cool. And that was